Avery Lyford's Vice President of Commercial Partnerships at RapidFort. Welcome. It's good to have you on the program. A lot of discussion here about zero trust on the one hand and automation on the other hand. What's your sense of how to combine those two things, the intersection that agencies should be looking for today?
Absolutely. I think they go perfectly together because, to deliver on zero trust, you have to have some level of automation. Today in the world of AI, you're seeing things happen 10 times, 100 times faster. And you can't solve that by working 10 times, 100 times harder. You got to be smarter. And that's what we do, is we help support, first there was a wave of zero trust for identity. There's a wave of zero trust around networks. And we're now focused on the next wave. In a world of software, enabled by AI, you need to have zero trust enabled software development. And one of the pieces to that is you need to know, where did your software come from? You need to know what's the whole source of it, and you need to make sure that it's clean, that you're working with, that you're starting with something that's clean and dependable as a base. And so that's why I have to say that we're like the water company for open source. Just like water, open source is free. And just like open source, if you just went out and pulled a cup of water out of the pond, you probably wouldn't be happy with the results. So, years ago, people would get water on their own. They would have a well, they would pull up whatever they would pull up. And over time, you need to have more and more water. And what happened is you got a water company. And the water company made sure that what you pulled out of the tap was clean. And that might mean different things depending on what the source of the water was, well water versus stream water, et cetera. In the same way, we work with open source and we look, what's the complete, trace it all the way back to the very base packages, then come all the way through. And then, as we both know, there are tons and tons of vulnerabilities now being discovered with AI. And you're seeing more and more software being developed with AI. So how can you trust it? How do you do zero trust software development? Well, you've got to make sure you've got either you or a partner that's working to make sure that you've applied all of the fixes. Because if you build a building on a bad foundation, you're going to have a bad building.
Mm-hmm.
And we make sure that you've got that strong foundation so you can have that zero trust software architecture. And that's, in turn, is enabled by automation, and it in turn enables more automation, because it means now you can stop having a set of developers focused on running back doing patching, which, no one ever said hooray for patching. What they do, they say hooray for the mission that you focused and you developed the things that made a difference for your mission. And that's what we enable. We enable you to focus on the mission, not on patching.
Before we went on the air, you were telling me about your observations about the way the nature of software development has changed. That
Yes.
It's more of an integration process than a code writing process. How does that inform the way that agencies need to think about what they are using and how they're defending it?
It's interesting, once upon a time, people would be writing in assembly language or something. And now a lot more software development is composition versus exposition. And so if you're composing, you need to know that you can trust those things that you're pulling from, and they represent themselves as doing something. They represent themselves as being a database. But are there additional pieces added in that you may or may not want? And so, if you're doing this in modern software development, first of all, is probably AI enabled. If it's AI enabled, the AI, there are a number of attack vectors when you're coming at someone, including things like typo squatting, including things, like going at, you've got older versions of packages. So in this world where you've got, you're doing composition, you need to know all those building blocks. Can you trust them? Right? So instead of building the building completely from scratch, it's a lot more prefab housing. But you don't want to buy the prefab house that has a secret back door. Like, you'd like to know it's represented as a wall. It actually is a wall. There's not a secret door for someone to come into my house, right?
Is that different security, or is it more security, or some combination of both, or something else that I didn't list?
I think one big change is that a lot of security was operationally focused. So I would put something into production and I'd say, operationally, is someone trying to come into my system? So I'm looking at vulnerabilities, I'm looking at network attacks. And we're saying is, you need to now shift left. You need to take that security. You can't test in security at the end. You need to design security, and you need to build the security in development so that by the time it gets to production, it's already ready and fortified. You don't want to try to, at the end, try to go back and take your prefab house and say, now let me see if there's anything here. No, no, do it before you put it all together.
Hmm.
We both know that when you're putting something together, it's easier to see what's going on. Once it's all put together, it's sometimes very hard to like decompose it and find out what's actually in the middle of it.
How different is that from the conversation that people have been having for a long time, like the secured by design
Mhm.
conversation that's happening at CISA now? People have been talking about that for a long time. Is this the same concept?
It's along the same path because you have to secure by design, but let's unpack what does that actually mean,
Mm.
right? The words are simple, execution is hard. And so that's why we've gone and said, look, let's make sure all the building blocks you're building from are secure. Let's make sure you actually understand where they all came from. I mean, this is, I mean, everyone in the physical supply chain knows this. You wouldn't want to like, it's a Coke bottle, but where did it really get bottled? Well, I'd like to know,
Hmm.
especially if I'm doing something in the world of in a high security environment. I want to know exactly the traceability of the people. I want to know the traceability of my code. I want to know that you'd expect it for everything else. Why would you not also expect it for your code?
We're almost out of time.
Yeah.
What's on the horizon for folks that are tracking these issues? What should they be paying attention to today to anticipate what they might be up against 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now?
I think they should be looking at what does a complete zero trust to think about zero trust software architecture. Which includes everything from having it by design, but then as we both know, new things, new attack vectors come up over time. So you also want to say, look, when it's in production, is there a way for me to identify new threats, isolate and protect from those threats while I go back and fix things against the new attack vector? So start to think about not just zero trust identity and not just zero trust networking, but think about what does it mean to do zero trust software architecture in the world of artificial intelligence.